Okay, so we'll get started as more people join in. Thank you everyone for coming. This morning's open research office is on Community Engagement Studios, and today's topic is going to be presented by Grace McKenzie and Keenan Gibbons. They're our community engagement team within the CTSI. So whenever you guys are ready.
Thank you so much, Marshall. Good morning, everyone. I am Grace McKenzie, a community engagement specialist in the Community Engagement Corps. Keenan Gibbons is the other half of our team. So we work together to work with researchers to do community engagement studios. We come with a varied background. My background is in community engagement for not-for-profits. So I have 15 years experience in community engagement, and Keenan comes with a master's degree in public health with experience with the public housing. So we have varied backgrounds with community engagement. So we would really like this to be as interactive as possible. Please feel free to use the chat. Please feel free to raise your hand and ask questions along the way. We would love your feedback along the way. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see that? Okay, great. Okay, so our core director is Lorene Tumiel-Berhalter. She is, I believe, on the call as well, on the workshop as well. So that's us. And at the bottom is just ways to get in contact with us. So community engagement is really important on several different levels. It works to better inform your research. So when you partner with the community that you're trying to do research on, it leads to more meaningful research, knowing that you are actually interacting with the community that you are wanting to learn more about. It also helps with being culturally appropriate and having culturally appropriate interventions and meaningful outcomes to your research. Again, it's building relationships and building rapport with the community that you're doing research on. It builds trust between the researcher and the community, and it builds respect again, respectful relationships between the research community and the community being studied. Community engagement also accelerates the translation of scientific findings into practice and improves population health. So once you have a built-in relationship with the community, it's much easier to disseminate findings and to turn findings into practice with those ties into the community that are already formed from the very beginning of your research, from the very beginning of your study. And as you do submit grant applications, many grant applications right off the bat are going to ask or have a section about what is your community engagement? How are you involved in the community that you're researching? And that's something that our department can help you with from the very start of your research. Also, community engagement is grounded in principles of fairness, justice, empowerment, participation, and self-determination. Community engagement works with social determinants of health and health equity so that you really know the disparities that are within the community that you're researching, that you have ties with. Understanding that perspective of the community will only help inform your research and make it more meaningful. There's a really great handbook that is linked here called the Principles of Community Engagement. This is like the best handbook for community engagement. It's put out by NIH and CDC collaboratively, so it's a federal handbook. It's very lengthy. It's 200 pages, but everything that you would ever want to know about community engagement is in this handbook. So we highly recommend that you download that and take a look at that. So there are different levels of community engagement, and it's really a continuum. Where it could be as basic as community education, where you're doing maybe tablings at events, where you're informing the community about your research, about your findings, that type of thing, where it's more just educational. Then there are a couple different levels before you get to the highest level of engagement. There's community focused research, which is research that is undertaken for the community to help fill a gap in knowledge. And then there's community-based research, which is research that's undertaken in the community to improve knowledge of local conditions or issues. So those would involve different outreach strategies and different ways of communicating with the community. And the highest level of involvement of the community with research is community-based participatory research, where the community is involved in every step of the research process, from the groundwork of writing the protocol and being involved with the very basics of designing the research, all the way through to data collection, data analysis, and dissemination of findings. So that's the highest level in the continuum with the most level of engagement. There are different strategies along the way that we could use to help you with your research. You may decide to have a CAB, which is a community advisory board. So really a CAB works along the whole continuum, so that you have community experts that are on your board that can inform you every step along the way of what you're doing in your research study. And it can go beyond one study to really inform your whole body of work. Example of that is Dr. Denise Lilvis, we have worked with to help establish her community advisory board. And so she has work with people with disabilities, especially children with disabilities. So her community advisory board helps frame those the studies that she does based on that body of work. So it's families and people with disabilities that help her. Before you even start to think about a community advisory board, the very best thing to do at the very beginning of thinking about a study is a community engagement studio. So the studio is not research, and we'll get into that in just a moment. The community engagement studio can inform your research at any of these levels in the continuum of engagement. Okay, so the overview of this community engagement studio model is that so many researchers are not prepared to identify, recruit, convene, or engage stakeholders or prepare them for participation in research. So this is a really useful tool to be able to engage the community further in research down the road. This research model was developed by Mahari Vanderbilt community engagement team, and they have been using this CE Studio model for many years. So this is a model that is really tried and true and has gone through the process of vetting to be really significant and powerful, a powerful tool to use. Like I said before, it's a tool that can help strengthen partnerships and develop community participatory research. So with this diagram, there's really a couple different things going on when you decide to do a community engagement studio. So there's two different branches. There's the researcher end of the studio and the stakeholder end of the studio. So once you decide that you want to do a community engagement studio, we work with you so that you understand what the studio model is and how it can, be used to inform your research. We work with you to develop a PowerPoint presentation. So the studio starts, the meeting itself starts with a 10 to 15 minute presentation from the researchers that is really in plain language, as simple language as possible, that's talking about what the research question is, what your specific topic is. It defines any terms that are specific for your research that the community may not be familiar with. And then it asks the pertinent questions that you want to receive feedback from the community. So once we work with you to develop that presentation, and we help you with structuring your part of the facilitated meeting. So with that, at the same time, we are also working with the stakeholders. So we help you draft a flyer inviting stakeholders to the meeting. And then as people respond to the invitation, and we do send the flyer out to all of our Buffalo Research Registry participants, and some of our community partners as well that are appropriate to pass on to their clients as well. So those are the different ways we use to recruit community experts. So once we recruit the community experts, we give them an orientation as to how the facilitated meeting is going to go so that they have an idea of what the structure of the meeting is going to be, what questions are going to be asked of them, so they could really start to think about how they are going to participate, what they want to say in the meeting, and really get that orientation to the flow of the meeting. The facilitated meeting lasts about 2 hours. So the first 15 minutes are the researcher presentation. And then the rest of the 90 minutes is getting feedback from the community stakeholders. So during that meeting, we are taking copious notes and recording the session so that researchers can look back on the information in detail to make sure that no ideas are lost along the way. After that, we do summarize all the information from the meeting in a summary, so that the stakeholders can be informed of everything that was said, and also the researchers can be informed as well, and use that really as a guide for their research study and establishing their rapport with the community as well. Are there any questions so far? Okay.
So you might be asking, what are the benefits of a CE studio? Well, as Grace, said, community experts have certain insight and knowledge that a study team might not be privy to, and they can provide perspectives into your research that maybe didn't even occur to you, or maybe they can identify gaps in your research or ways to more successfully implement your research. So, they provide different feedback, and some of these things have been on things like participant compensation. As we all know, compensation plays a major role in recruitment. So your experts can look at your participation and say, you're asking way too much for too low of compensation. Or maybe they'll say, compensation is fine, but you're talking to community members who might not have, say, reliable transport. So maybe we need to think about, bus tokens, or start thinking about using different networks of individuals to, foster this research. In addition, it helps with cultural appropriateness. So for example, it's pretty well known that, mental health is a sensitive topic, especially for African-American and Black communities. So, having experts come in and say, you shouldn't be using these words, or maybe this is the way you should present it, or even in your design, maybe there's a way that we can implement it so that, community members feel more comfortable participating, things like that. As well as better ways to recruit and retain individuals in your study. So, a lot of times we see in community engagement, people are always like flyers, flyers, flyers. And flyers are important, right? But sometimes it's where you're delivering those flyers, how you're delivering those flyers. Those are things that community experts can tell you, hey, this group of individuals gets together on Sundays at this community center, and maybe you should come to it. So that's sort of insight and insider look into the populations that you're trying to reach. Also simplifying the consent process. As we all know, they can be long, lengthy documents, and they can provide help into, well, maybe you should offer some additional context, or maybe, individuals are going to have difficulties understanding this, or, maybe there's a better way to deliver it, as well as, just overall intervention design, survey design, ethical considerations, and also translation of research into practice. Next slide, please. So a comparison of CE Studio model. Grace kind of already touched upon most of this, but something that we have investigators kind of a little confused about is, the CE Studio model it's a one-time consultation. It's like if you consult our team, or, if you were in another field, say, marketing, and you consult an expert in the field, that's essentially what you're doing. It's meant to inform you, but it's not meant to serve as research. And it's bi-directional. So, as opposed to, say, a focus group or an interview where the study team is kind of driving the conversation in that typical, Q&A format, there's a lot more driving by the community experts. So, you give your presentation, you ask your question, and then you kind of open up Pandora's box, and we always will have a facilitator there to drive it back, to keep it focused if it needs to be. But otherwise, it may unlock, some information that maybe you didn't anticipate. So what it isn't is, like Grace said, a community advisory board. It's not standing. They're not going to be meeting repeatedly. It's also not a tool for recruiting research participants. So the expectation is not that you are using the community engagement studio to gain access to a population to recruit them. You're not bringing them in to participate. You're bringing them in to better your project and kind of increase the impact of your project. It's also not a tool for data collection. So, what you do in the CE studio, we collect information to make sure that it informs your project, but you wouldn't be publishing on that information. You wouldn't be collecting it as data to come up with your final conclusion. And it's also not community-based participatory research. It can be a component of it, but you are not engaging with these individuals at all parts of your study. They are not there during data collection. This is, like I said, a one-time instance. So next slide, please. So who's part of the CE Studio team? So it includes the research, the faculty researcher, usually their study team. So if there's other co-PIs, or if, say, you have your research coordinator there, because a lot of times they're so integral into developing some of these materials, as well as myself and Grace, and Laureen, our core director. We'll be in charge of coordinating planning and logistics of the CE studio, booking rooms if it's virtual, training individuals how to use Zoom, and also locating those individuals for participation. So the primary responsibility of the research team is, to develop that PowerPoint and to come ready to absorb all the thoughts and ideas of the community experts, as well as also a skilled neutral community facilitator. Ideally, this is someone from the intended community. However, Grace and I are both trained as neutral facilitators, so we can always fill in if need be. Next slide, please. So then you might be asking, okay, Keenan, how much does this cost? We know that, sometimes our budgets can be tight, and kind of wondering how much this might impact our budget or how we work it in. Well, we have to compensate our experts and our facilitators for their time. We wouldn't expect them to do this for free, just like we wouldn't expect to work for free. The typical standard is $25 per hour for experts, and then facilitators are also $25 per hour, but outside of that 2-hour studio, they're also doing additional work, and then also considerations like transportation. Something to note is you might be thinking, oh my goodness, I don't have money for, I don't have $750 in the budget to do this. Well, you're in luck, because the CTSI provides for funded CE studios every year. Right now, we currently have 2 scheduled, but we still have 2 opened. And we are able to absorb the costs of, this, of the experts, compensating the experts and facilitators, transportation, any other aspects of the budget that we need. And we do that on a first come, first serve basis. So, if maybe you're not ready to do it this year, or you don't get one of those 4 funded ones, it'll kind of revamp in 2024 with 4 new ones. And something lastly, just to take into consideration, is the fact that these studios, while they might seem expensive, can save you tons of money on the back end, especially if you're having trouble recruiting, and you have to, pay back funds or anything like that. In addition, just to share, the way that the CTSI compensates these individuals is through US bank cards, and we're able to do kind of that back end work as well. So I'm going to pass it back off to Grace to kind of bring us all in.
Okay, sounds good. So do you have a project or an investigator in mind? So we are just starting studios back up from having a break during COVID. So this is like the first year back to studios. We can offer them virtually. So if you still, prefer a virtual forum, we can totally do that. If you prefer in person, we can certainly do in person now as well. So we can do the in-person in the community, that you're doing research with, or we could do it at our offices if you prefer having the studio at the CTSI. We could do that as well. So really, whatever format is most comfortable for you. So anyone that's interested in scheduling a CE studio can contact me directly. My email is here. And as Keenan already said, we have a budget to do 4 a year. We have 2 already scheduled. So we do have openings for 2 more studios to do from our own budget. So we're open to do as many studios as there is interest. So, don't think that you have to be the one of the 2 and or else you can't do it. We can certainly work with you to schedule a studio at your convenience. Also, for a studio, usually it's after work hours. So we encourage you to have a studio in the early evening, say 5 to 7, 5:30 to 7, that type of thing, so that people who are working can come right after work. So with that being said, also we would encourage budgeting for some sort of refreshment at the studio if it is in person. At least bottled water or something for them to have, especially if it's during like a dinner time. So people usually warm up around refreshments as well. So keep that in mind also with a budget, that you may want to add a drink or a snack, or as big as a meal. So these are some more resources to look into, and we can certainly share the slides. The slides will be posted on our webpage, actually. There is the Community Engagement Studio Toolkit, which was developed through Vanderbilt. It's a wonderful toolkit. It has all the materials that you would need in a studio. There's a YouTube video that you can explore that explains it more thoroughly. And then an article that on CE Studios. So those are really good resources. And then there's virtual training. If you're really excited about the studio model, there's training that you can go through to be a facilitator or an acute community engagement specialist to work with, with the studios as well. So Keenan and I have been through this training. It's wonderful. So it's an acknowledgement of where we come from and what we are able to offer. So with that, I'll stop sharing so that we can field any questions or comments. Okay. I have one more really nice example that that I can share. Some people may be familiar with Lise Taylor. She works with kidney transplants, and she began her work with kidney transplants many years ago, with kidney disease and kidney transplants, and she had a studio. She developed a community advisory board, and through her research and really reaching out to her community, she developed a really great rapport with a community expert. And her community expert became an ambassador to her, to her studies and to her field. So it really grew a very beautiful friendship, and ambassador from just, that first meeting to building rapport and relationship over time as well. So really your community involvement could be whatever you want it to be, and it can really inform you in your research and be a great asset. So thank you so much for participating. We really appreciate you, being here and listening to our presentation. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Grace and Keenan. For everyone that's still on, I will be sending a post survey email in about 10 minutes. Please make sure that you complete the survey. It's very important for a numerous amount of reasons. So if you could just fill it out, it should only take about 5 to 10 minutes. It would be greatly appreciated. But that is it for today. Grace and Keenan, if you guys wouldn't mind just staying on for a few minutes after everyone's left. Thank you.